Good afternoon. Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service. I'm Steve Wicks. I'm honored to serve as your president this year. Please silence your electronic devices. On this day in history, January 13th, 1888, the National Geographic Society was founded in Washington, D.C. for the increase and diffusion of geographic knowledge. John Diltz will deliver today's reflection.
Good afternoon. My name is John Diltz, and all my life I've been a collector. Stamps, coins, all that stuff. But I didn't know that I collected knives until recently. My wife asked for some ideas for Christmas gifts, and I said I would really like to have a marlin spike knife. It's a sailor's knife, and I didn't have one. There was a long, there was a long pause. And she said, "You need a knife?" And well, no, I don't need one. I just don't have that one. And that's when I knew I was a collector. I already had about 30 knives, machetes, pen knives, some hunting knives, lots of pocket knives. I even had two paramilitary tactical knives, one of which is a Spyderco Rescue, designed for first responders, and it was the first generation one. And if you're into that sort of thing, you now are impressed that I have a Spyderco Rescue knife. And all of this got me thinking about the difference between accumulations and collections. First, an accumulation refers to the stuff that clutters my personal world, mostly stuff that came as gifts or for very narrow practical reasons, such as books, tools, tackle, toys. For example, I have a whole drawer full of screwdrivers. I mean, a big drawer full of screwdrivers and 3 complete sets of socket wrenches. Now, that's an accumulation. On the other hand, there's the stuff that I gathered intentionally, just for what they are, regardless of their utility. For example, I have a collection of early editions of by the Indiana author Booth Tarkington. I have a collection of political campaign buttons, milk bottles, and 19th century pocket watches. The difference between accumulations and collections matters because most of the accumulated stuff I won't mind leaving behind when I die, but the collectibles, those I'd like to take with me. The thing is, as you know, not all collectibles travel well into the hereafter. Knives and milk bottles and first editions don't travel well at all. However, there are collectibles that actually do travel well. Things like joyfulness and gentleness and gratefulness and friendliness and faithfulness, hopefulness, peacefulness, especially peacefulness. Peacefulness travels very well. These are the collections that are portable. And if I am to be a collector, this is maybe where I should put my energy and my money. So here's my New Year's resolution. When I die, I promise to leave the knife collection at home with the rest of the accumulations, except for that marlin spike knife. I'm planning to take that along. Happy New Year.
What a worthy resolution. Thank you, John. Katie Cerniak will introduce our guests today.
All right. Hello, everyone. We have 4 guests here in person today. First, we have Melissa von Buskirk, who is a guest of Ellen Strawman. Oh, sorry. If you can please stand so we can recognize you and welcome you, we would appreciate that. So, Melissa, are you here? Oh, Let's just clap for Melissa anyway. Let's welcome Melissa. Okay. Um, Thank you. Next, we have Matthew Joseph, a guest of Elaine Barker. Matthew, are you here? Next, we have Amalia Shifres, who's here with the Lake Monroe Water Fund. Welcome. And we also have Clara Stanley, who is a guest of Jim Bright. Where is she? Yeah, welcome. And do we have any guests online?
Let's see. Okay. Hi, everyone. So today we have Amy and James Wolfe. We have Bill, Cindy Brumberger, Hauxi Wang, James Sims, Marcy Hibbard, Martha, Raj, and Sandy Keller.
Thank you. All right, welcome everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome guests. If you'd like to learn something about Rotary, just turn to the Rotarian next to you. Rotary birthdays. We have 2 Rotary birthdays to celebrate. Eric Powell on the 17th, John Bender on the 19th. We have 2 anniversaries to celebrate. Jonas Chang on the 15th, 1 year, and Lance Eberly, 24 years, also on the 15th. Announcements. Next Chamber of Commerce Business After Hours will be held tomorrow, Wednesday, January 14th, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Spring Mill Inn in Mitchell. Rotary members attend free of charge. See me or see Christopher, one of the middle tables, if you have questions. The Rotary Book Club will meet tomorrow, January 14th, starting at 7 p.m. at the home of Judy Schroeder. The book will discuss E. Jean Carroll's Not My Type, One Woman versus a President. All are welcome, but please let Judy Schroeder know if you are coming so she can plan on whether it's 8 people or 28 people. And Judy's sitting right there. Want to put your hand up, Judy? Okay. So our club executive assistant, Mandy Stewart, started today. So let's welcome Mandy. So all of us have one name to learn. Mandy has 160 names to learn. So please be patient and give her some time to learn your name. Second phase of the Meals on Wheels District Grant Project will take place on Wednesday, January 21st. Need about 5 volunteers to help at the Meals on Wheels office that morning. Last count from Diana Hoffman, we had 3, so we need 2 more. So if you can help that morning, Diana Hoffman is sitting at that table right there. In addition, club members are needed to make donations of specific items, and Diana has a handout as to what they need. So please help Meals on Wheels. This is the second phase of our annual district grant project. Happy Dollar proceeds for the months of January and February will be given to Teachers Warehouse. The Community Services Committee is meeting here today immediately after this meeting. Meeting is open for committee members and others who are interested in learning more about this committee. And I'll be on vacation next week. Our club president-elect, Sam Udak, will lead the celebration of service that day. And now we have a special grant presentation.
Hi, folks. I'm here representing the Community Service Committee, and I am delighted to announce the award of our second Rotary Foundation grant. inaugural foundation grant. And this grant is going to the Monroe County, Lake Monroe Water Fund. And it is one of 13 proposals that we received. Last week, we honored Wonder Lab. And for this grant, it will be for $4,000. And we're delighted to have an opportunity for Michelle to give us a little background on this. But before she does, I do want to say that Michelle and I are co-chairs of the Community Service Committee. And because of the tired look on my face, you could probably surmise that Michelle was not involved in any way in the grant selection process as an awardee from beginning to end. So that was something I ran, or led, I should say. The one last thing I will say is that this, before she speaks, there will be opportunities for Rotarians to roll up their sleeves and put on their boots to work on this grant. So please, Michelle.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for taking on the entire process of the grant awards. Much appreciated. And he's correct. I did nothing and he did a huge amount of work. So we played tag this morning. So I'm it from now on for the next few months for the committee. So our grant is for a project we're calling Forests to Faucets, Native Trees for Water Quality and Wildlife. And just to let you know that woodlands and forests are the best land cover you can possibly have for water quality, soaking up stormwater, preventing sediment and other runoff from going into the lake. So our project is going to be planting 30 to 35 native trees on a former ag plot that DNR has near Stillwater Marsh off of State Road 46. So if you'd like to help us out and plant trees for water quality, and they also provide wonderful habitat for wildlife, we're targeting Saturday, April 18th, near Earth Day and Arbor Day as the date. And if the weather for some reason is incredibly awful, we are targeting the following Saturday. So we'll have more info on that as we go. There's also a public awareness component of this, and we're hoping to put a billboard up on State Road 46 touting the benefits of native trees and plantings. And of course, we'll include Rotary in that for recognition. So thank you to the entire club, to the foundation, to all the folks who are on the committee who reviewed the grants, and to Dave. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm standing near the mic, so I'm going to make a quick plug so I didn't have to ask Steve. 50 Men Who Care, the Giving Circle, will be meeting Thursday at 5:30 at Heartwork Brewing Company. And so anybody that is interested in rejoining this group that has not met in 4 years to help support our community, please come out or see me. I'm sitting over there. Thank you. Sorry, Steve.
Thank you, Dave. Now it's time for the Mystery Rotarian. Okay, remember the process. I will give a clue. If you know the answer, put up your hand. If you're online, raise your hand electronically. Don't shout out. And then we'll go through the process with a second clue and a third clue. Hopefully more people after the second clue know than after the first clue, but that's not always the case. So here's the first clue. Born in Vigo County, Indiana, this Rotarian grew up in Martinsville and has served as a Morgan County Historic Preservation Society board member. This individual earned bachelor's and master's degrees from the IU O'Neill School. Okay, I see 3 or 4, maybe 5 hands. Okay. Second clue. The recipient of 2 Sagamores of the Wabash. This Rotarian worked as a staffer for Indiana Governors O'Bannon and Kernan. Later, this individual served as chief of staff for Congressman Barron Hill, and then later as a regional director for the 2012 Barack Obama presidential campaign. You know the answer? Put up your hand. We have a few more. Third clue. This Rotarian currently leads CDFI Friendly Bloomington as executive director. And in his second stint as a Rotarian, this individual rejoined the club in 2021 and currently serves as club treasurer. Put up your hand if you know. We have quite a few now. And our mystery Rotarian is John Zodi, sitting in the back there. John served 8 years as the state of Indiana Democratic Party chairman and as a member of the Democratic National Committee. Closer to home, John previously worked as director of the City of Bloomington Housing and Neighborhood Development Department. And John is a graduate of Leadership Bloomington, Monroe County, and has served on the Bloomington Board of Zoning Appeals. He's also taught as an adjunct instructor at the O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs. I'm really happy now that he's spending time as Rotary treasurer. So congratulations, John. I saw, Sally, you were one of the first ones with your hand up. Did you get it right? Excellent. Whitney, did anyone get it right online? Do you know?
We didn't have people raising their hand. So
Okay, no hands online.
mm-mm.
So anyway, congratulations, John Zodi, and thank you. Rotary International, 7 areas of focus. I show this every now and then, just so we're reminded of the things that we care about as an international organization. You can see that, up on the top left, water and sanitation is the primary focus. And so our grant to the Lake Monroe Water Fund fits right into that. But January is Rotary Vocational Services Month, using our professional expertise to make a difference. I already announced this, but the Happy Dollar proceeds in January and February given to Teachers Warehouse. And I think we're ready for our speaker introduction. Sally Gaskell will introduce our speaker today.
Hey, everyone. Jane McLeod is a Provost Professor Emerita of Sociology at IU. Her research looks at mental health and health inequalities. She received all of her degrees, a bachelor's, 2 master's, and a PhD from the University of Michigan. Her first job was at the University of Minnesota, and she came to IU with tenure in 1998. She served not only as chair of the Sociology Department, but as an associate vice provost and executive associate dean of the college. I first met Jane when she became president of the board of Voces Novae, the small choir that I've been part of for 20 years. Jane led that organization for, I believe, 4 years, and excuse me, under her leadership, we adopted a new strategic plan and produced the biggest project in our history, the Vonnegut Requiem. Jane is herself a member of the UU Choir, the choir of the Universalist Unitarian Church of Bloomington, and she's also president of the UU congregation. Jane retired last May from teaching and administration, so when I heard that she was involved in something new in Bloomington, I took note. I went to my first traveling university program 2 days ago and got to hear one of Bloomington's treasurers, Scott Russell Sanders, who talked about our commonwealth living in a shared world. It was a dark and cold Sunday afternoon, and what a wonderful interlude it was to hear Scott Sanders. I know you will be interested in learning about the traveling university as well, so please welcome Jane McLeod.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to visit you today to tell you a little bit about the Traveling University, which is an organization that I established with retired IU faculty this past fall. To understand who and why we are, I need to take a step back to talk about the impetus for our establishment, which was an op-ed in the New York Times, and the history behind that, which involves the Polish Flying University. Oh, sorry, let me get my... So on April 14th of 2025, Masha Gessen published an op-ed in the New York Times about how universities should respond to threats to higher education. You may recall that this is around the time that the president began his most public attacks against universities. In their op-ed, Gessen argued that universities, quote, must abandon all the concerns, rankings, donors, campus amenities that preoccupy and distract them, and focus on their core mission, the production and dissemination of knowledge, end quote. Gessen further encouraged universities to act like universities, not like businesses. He argued, don't close your DEI offices, don't pull back on what you teach, don't agree to federal oversight. Quote, spend your endowments, accept more, not fewer students, open up your campuses and expand your reach, not by buying real estate, but by bringing education to communities. Create a base, become a movement. And Gessen identified two models for doing this. The first is to follow the example of Bard College, which actively reaches outside of its walls to provide education. Bard teaches in the New York State prisons. It runs micro colleges in Holyoke, Massachusetts for young mothers and low-income women, and at the public library in Brooklyn. It operates 10 high schools from which students can graduate with associate's degrees from Bard College. The second is modeled on the Flying University of Poland and involves offering courses outside of the formal university structure. In brief, the Flying University of Poland offered clandestine academic education at historical moments when Polish sovereignty was under threat. And I was inspired by that article and realized that I'm not in a position to do the former, but that I might be in a position to do something like the latter. So what was the Flying University? Well, what's now referred to as the Flying University existed at three moments in Polish history. And the history begins in the late 18th century when the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, or the First Polish Republic, was partitioned after a period of civil unrest and sustained external assault, and its lands divided among its neighbors, Imperial Russia, Prussia, and Austria's Habsburg monarchy. In the Russian and Prussian partitions, teaching in Polish was outlawed. Polish universities were closed. Primary and secondary schools were only allowed to teach as much as people needed to know to be peasants. Instruction in science, philosophy, history, language, and literature was suspended, and girls were not allowed to attend school beyond middle school. There were several attempts to establish legally functioning Polish universities during this period, but they failed. The Royal Warsaw University was established in 1818, but was closed by Russia after an uprising in 1830. An attempt was made to create a university called the Main School in Warsaw in 1862, but that only survived until 1869 when it too was abolished after another uprising. So as a response to these closures, Polish academics began to offer secret courses in private apartments in Warsaw beginning in 1882. The instructors were Polish professors who'd been dismissed from Polish universities when they were closed. And the course offerings are largely uncoordinated, sort of whoever wanted to offer something, that was what was being offered. And they emphasized self-education because meeting in person was risky. It was a time of real innovation in the development of self-learning materials. And the first courses were directed towards women. In 1885, Jadwiga Szywinski, pictured here, united the various groups offering courses into a single informal and illegal secret university that became known as the Flying University. Flying because the universities were changed frequently to prevent authorities from learning the location and arresting the teachers and students. Students were charged minimally for the courses, and those fees were used to provide honoraria to the teachers and to create a secret library. The curriculum covered 5 main subjects: social sciences, pedagogy, philology, history, and natural sciences. And Marie Curie was one of the students. In the build-up to World War I, some say in an effort to convert the Polish people to their cause, Polish partitioners allowed the flying universities to become a legal entity in 1905 as the TKN, or Association for Scientific Courses. It was allowed to operate with the status of a scholarly society, not as a university, so much of the teaching remained in secret. And the sources I consulted estimate that about 300 professors taught for the TKN with an average enrollment annually of 2,500 students. When Poland regained its independence after World War II, several new universities were established, and the TKN stopped operating as such and became the Free University, which operated until World War II. Poland was invaded in 1939 and occupied by Nazi Germany and Russia. Poland was once again divided, this time into areas directly incorporated into the Reich, directly incorporated into the Soviet Union, and a German-controlled central government area. The Nazis believed that Poles needed no education and no higher education, and intended that the public be turned into serfs for the German government. The only societies that remained open were trade schools and courses for factory workers. In the territories occupied into the Reich, education in Polish was banned and punishable by death. I feel like maybe I have a slide there. Throughout the Polish territory, the Germans abolished all university education for non-Germans. All institutions of higher education were closed. Their equipment and most of the laboratories were taken to Germany and divided among German universities, while those buildings became offices and military barracks. So in response to these actions, the Secret to Teaching Society was established to provide education first to primary and secondary students, and then to university students. Estimates indicate that about 1.5 million children received education through the society. A network of underground universities grew, including universities in Warsaw, Krakow, and Lviv, with estimates indicating that almost 10,000 students received master's degrees at the secret universities, and several hundred others received doctorates. So you can see there's a long history of this kind of clandestine education in Poland. And I don't think we should underestimate the courage that was required to offer these courses. It was a dangerous time. Members of the faculty were sought, found, captured, arrested, beaten, or killed for their commitment to education. The end of World War II brought a communist regime to Poland, which continued to censor Polish language, history, and culture. Polish higher education became dominated by state universities run by the Ministry of Education, and members of the ministry were appointed by the government and approved by the Polish Communist Party. The articulated logic was that because the state finances the universities, it should be able to make decisions about what is taught and how it is taught. In effect, educational institutions became instruments of state ideology. And in response, the tradition of the Flying University was revived once again for the final time in 1978, when a group of 61 Polish intellectuals, including university faculty and writers, established a clandestine university in Warsaw and named it for its predecessor, the TKN. Its main purpose was to provide lectures and seminars, to publish scholarly writings, and to stimulate research, with a particular emphasis on what they referred to as areas of darkness, topics that were prohibited by the state curriculum. The instructors included professors who were active at state universities and research centers, former professors who'd lost their jobs for political reasons, and distinguished writers and artists. They first operated openly, published a declaration of their intent, and gave public lectures, but that led to the arrest of members and the decision to move their activities underground again. Teaching was conducted in small groups with no permanent meeting place. The time and place of each lecture was kept secret and communicated person to person or through a clandestine press. The courses that were taught by the Flying University were not intended to substitute for state universities, but were intended to supplement them. Many of the students were actually official students at state universities who took additional courses through the Flying University. There were no official registration lists so that students could participate secretly. Rectors at state-run universities said that those students would be expelled if they were found to be participating in these courses. And it was, again, a dangerous enterprise. Professors who were discovered faced reprisals. They were forbidden to publish. They lost their university positions. They lost their passports. They were arrested. They were beaten. And the most recent Flying University was active until 1981 when martial law was imposed and many of the professors were detained. So the overarching goal of the Flying University was to provide free academic instruction outside of formal state-controlled educational institutions, and in that way to revive and protect academic freedom. It provided a structure in which to explore these areas of darkness, particularly the social sciences and humanities that were restricted by the state curriculum as a supplement to state university education. It gave faculty who had lost their positions an opportunity to interact with students and publish their work, and provided a more comprehensive education to students than was possible in state universities. So despite differences in the specific circumstances that gave rise to the various versions of the Flying University, there were important commonalities. They were established in response to limits on academic freedom, both what could be taught and how it could be taught. It reflected a deep commitment to preserving knowledge that would otherwise be lost, especially the threatened loss of Polish history and culture. And there was an investment in educating the public, especially early on women and throughout younger people. So you might ask yourself, given this specific history, what relevance does the Flying University have for us? Indiana has not been partitioned. People are not yet they're not being threatened with death for teaching disciplinary content, although they are being sanctioned. So there is a changing context of higher education in the state of Indiana, with the state asserting more control over higher education. In the recent budget, as part of Bill HEA 1001, the governor was given power to appoint the 3 trustees who used to be voted on by alumni, thus depriving the latter of a vote that they've had since the 1890s. There's now a discussion of bringing back alumni representatives. Faculty now go through a 5-year post-tenure productivity review, which raises concerns about kind of the erosion of tenure protections, which is the strongest protection we have of academic freedom. Degree programs deemed to be low enrolled are being consolidated or eliminated, including language programs for which IU is known internationally. And there was also SEA 202, and the content I take here is directly from the Vice Provost for Faculty and Academic Affairs, which places requirements on how and what faculty teach at the institution. The concerns being the areas that I highlighted in yellow, with an unclear definition of what counts as providing intellectual diversity in the courses that you offer, what it means to provide a variety of political or ideological frameworks within a curriculum that's established by the Board of Trustees rather than by the faculty, and that faculty may be evaluated based on other criteria established by the Board of Trustees, which raises concerns about what those might be. So it was in this context that I read Masha Gessen's op-ed and decided that it was time to start thinking about how to establish something like the Flying University here in Bloomington. And I established 3 goals for the Flying University: to preserve and disseminate knowledge and understanding that might otherwise be lost, to create a space where faculty can teach disciplinary content without fear of reprisal, and to provide up-to-date information about topics of civic interest to new audiences. And I see the last of these as important as the first 2. I think there are a lot of people around the state who are interested in the information that a university can provide, but who don't have direct access to that information. So I reached out to a few retired faculty leaders who agreed with me that we should not formally affiliate ourselves with IU. And then I started contacting retired faculty I know to gauge their interest in participating in the organization and/or in providing lectures. And I got positive responses from almost everyone. I convened a faculty council in August, which included myself, Margie Hershey from political science, Mike Grossberg from history, and Pat Foster from biology. And we agreed to start slowly in the fall, just offering, you probably won't be able to read that very well, but to offer lectures on 4 different topics in Bloomington by faculty who are outstanding speakers and who are known in the community. So we offered our lectures at public libraries and churches. Although I think some people would see our initiative as inherently political, we are committed to maintaining a non-ideological, nonpartisan stance. We really want people who are genuinely curious to come out to our events. So in the fall, we had events on immigration and politics, on courage in the face of hate, people who resisted the Klan historically in Indiana, on climate change, and on PBS. So the spring schedule for Bloomington has now been finalized, which you can see on our website. I don't know if I made this a live link. I don't know if I can make, I don't know how to get my, can you? Okay, and then there's like a little events tab on the side. So we have a spring schedule for Bloomington, which has now been finalized, which you can see on our website. And then we've expanded the location. So our goal was always to take education out of Bloomington into surrounding communities. So we have events this spring in Columbus, in Martinsville, in Nashville, in Bedford, and in Paoli. And we're offering events on a range of topics. As Sally mentioned, our first event of the spring was on the Commonwealth. We will have events on the relationship between story and memory with a documentary film screening. So if you can go to like the events tab. Yeah. The exploration of Mars, on vaccines, on autism, on museums and their role in society, on the social safety net, and in celebration of its 250th anniversary, an event on Abraham Lincoln's views on the Declaration of Independence that will be in May. So that's a little bit about what we've been doing and why, and I'm just gonna stop there and see what questions or comments you might have. I see Connie has a question. Oh, thank you.
I have attended one of your lectures. It was Margie. It was just wonderful, as she always is. I have a question for you, though. It's a teeny bit off subject, although not really. If I'm understanding what I read quickly this morning, a Black assistant, I think, professor has been has gotten in a lot of trouble because apparently some of his students, which I'm assuming are white, said that he was referring to white professors as white supremacists. What worries me about that is, do the students have that much power to get somebody in trouble over something like that?
Yeah, I actually didn't read that story, so I don't know the specifics, but students have quite a bit of power now, right? In the case of the social work faculty member here at IU, there was a student who submitted a complaint to our senator, Jim Banks, about material that they considered challenging and offensive that was offered in the classroom, and that person was moved out of that class and was sanctioned. That person's now able to teach, but under supervision. So it is a situation, and what's a little concerning too is that complaints can be submitted anonymously, right? So you don't actually know who submitted, you don't even really know for sure that they were actually there, right? There's no way to verify that. And I know when that anonymous system first came into place when I was executive associate dean in the college, and those complaints would come to us, and we basically say, well, I mean, what are we supposed to do with this, right? I mean, I can talk to the faculty member and say, someone said this thing happened. Did that actually happen? And of course, there are always 2 perspectives on the same situation. So the person would nearly always say, well, that's not how I remember what happened. And there's no way to follow up with the student and try to have a conversation between the 2 of them to come to some common understanding about what happened. I mean, I feel like, normally what happens is if someone says something that you disagree with, you say, I disagree with that, or tell me more about why you feel that way. But we've sort of taken that out, right? People don't have to do that anymore. They can just say, they said something I don't like. And that's worrisome. Anything else?
Any questions online?
We do not have any hands raised, so I assume we don't. No,
Hey, everyone.
no questions.
Again, thanks for having me. Thank you for one, like the historical kind of background of this, and then the mission that you're on. I guess I'm really curious about, like, how do you balance between kind of the social good of this and getting the name out there for this, while also holding the controversial like nature of it, given like current political pushing down of stuff like this. I'm sure that's not an easy balance to kind of hit, but I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. I just don't worry about it that much. And maybe I should worry about it more. But, we decided not to formally affiliate with IU. And I guess it was both because we were concerned about how IU might understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish, but also we would be concerned about how folks at the state level might interpret IU involvement in something like this. I mean, in a way, it shouldn't be controversial at all, right? Faculty have always gone out and given talks on the things that they know about as part of our goal, our job as public servants. But because of the time, it's just a little less clear to me how this would all be interpreted. We decided not to formally affiliate with IU. And with one exception, I've only been working with retired IU faculty. So I've had a few current faculty who've asked about giving lectures. And again, I mean, it should be completely non-controversial, but I just don't know how that involvement would be read by other parties. So there's only one current faculty member who's going to be speaking in our series. And that person is very close to retirement, basically said, like, whatever. Then I'll just retire if they get unhappy about it. So, and really, I mean, I don't know if anything would happen. I mean, maybe not, right? But everything just feels so unsettled that we just decided, in some sense, to play it the safest, right? So I always use a non-IU email when I email about the traveling university. We're all sort of just trying to make clear, right? We are not sanctioned by IU. And we are doing this because of our strong desire to provide education to the general public. Yeah, I think there's a question here, and then up here with them.
Thank you for your presentation. At a time when retired faculty are feeling unwanted because they have been banished from votes and from committees, do you find that your outreach is a way of helping those people who feel disenfranchised otherwise?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good question. And I'll be honest, no one has expressed that exact sentiment to me, but everyone I have asked to participate has been willing to participate and offer an event. And faculty like to share what they know. And so I think this does offer people an opportunity to continue to engage with students of all ages who attend our events. Yeah, so again, no one has said that exact thing to me, but I certainly hope that this offers people an opportunity to remain engaged with their intellectual life in a way that may feel is no longer available to them otherwise.
Have you reached out at all to other campuses to see if any other campus is interested in starting something similar? I know this is just the beginning, but
yeah, no, I'm really glad that you asked. I mean, certainly our hope is to reach out to other IU campuses. It's true, we haven't yet. I mean, so basically the traveling university is an operation that's located at my kitchen table. So we're just like, I wanted to kind of spend this first year to just figure out how to do this. and how to figure out how to get outside of Bloomington. Like we started in Bloomington in the fall because I know venues, I know people, we could get those things set up. I've been going around, I spoke to the Rotary in Martinsville and trying to go kind of around to other organizations around the state to let them know about what we're doing. But I would like folks from Purdue and from Ball State to help us reach other areas of the state that are more distant from here. But you're right, I could spend some more time this summer trying to reach out to folks at other IU campuses, which would be a logical next step given the IU connection. Thank you for that.
Can you speak a little bit about the format of these presentations? Are there particular age groups that are more appropriate to attend than others? And is there Q&A? What would somebody expect?
Yeah, so the most typical format for these is that someone will give a 45-minute to an hour-long presentation followed by Q&A. We're going to mix that up a little bit. Well, actually, the folks who did climate change, Tim Lonergan and Steve Vigdor, did much more questions throughout. We're trying to move into some other formats. So one of the events in the spring is that Eric Sandweiss is going to give tours of the 2 museums on campus and then of the campus in between. So that'll be a much different kind of format. That'll also be much smaller. It'll just be about 25 people. But so far, it's a pretty traditional lecture followed by Q&A kind of format. We would like to offer short form courses maybe next year. So maybe things that where people come 3 or 4 times, and those would probably be smaller and would have to be registered and would be kind of more interactive. Yeah, and I'd say, in terms of age, you might not be surprised that we tend to skew a little older on the age range in terms of who's been attending the lectures, but I think all of the content is appropriate for people of all ages. I mean, middle and high school students could come, and we would certainly want to encourage that.
Can you, of the programs you've done so far, can you share some of the surprises that you've had, or which program was really received much better than others?
Oh gosh, I don't know how to answer that question. I mean, they've all been, so yeah, so we've had programs on lots of different topics so far. I think I mentioned climate change, immigration and politics, PBS, and KKK, the Klan. And I think they've all been pretty well received. Attendance has varied, so maybe not surprisingly, when Jim Madison talked about the Klan, we had about almost 150 people there. Margie Hershey, talking about immigration and politics, brought in over 110 people. I think a more typical size for the events is anywhere between about 40 and 60 or 70 people. So I will say, actually, I was even though I knew we were bringing in stellar speakers, I've been surprised at how many people have attended, because we're this like young, scrappy organization. I mean, basically, I put up some Facebook posts and I tell people to talk to their friends, and I hope that people come. And a lot of people have come, and that has been sort of surprising to me. We have about 200 people now on the listserv, and so I think word is kind of filtering out little by little. So yeah, I guess in answer to your question, the most surprising thing to me has been how many people have come, because I just don't know how people are finding out about this. But I mean, we're trying, but I don't really know how to. I keep telling people I don't really know how to do this, so I'm just hoping that we do something and it works.
Thank you for doing this. I've attended a couple of the classes, and I appreciated hearing that next year you may do some multiple classes. I also, when you first began, was reminded of the Danish folk school movement and the way it contributed to democracy, not only in Denmark, but Sweden and other places. And I find myself wondering if, I know that there are some groups in some of our cities that are moving the Danish folk school model into urban neighborhoods with younger people. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, well, I just think that'd be terrific if it could happen.
Yeah, I think that would be terrific too. I don't know anything about that. So maybe I'll have to touch base with you, get your contact information so I can learn some more. Yeah, I mean, there are kind of there's the freedom school movement as well. And there are still freedom schools that operate around the country, including a couple in Indianapolis in the summers. I would love to offer something like that here in Bloomington. So yeah, but yeah, let me talk to you more about that. I would like to find out more.
Hi, I think this is just a really wonderful effort, and it looks like you've got just a pretty stellar lineup coming up too. How are you selecting the programs and who's going to be presenting?
Yeah, really, really good question. Well, at this point, to a large extent, we're a coalition of the willing. But, I certainly have given some thought to topics that I think are particularly timely. And then I've given some thought to people who I know are well known in at least some segments of the local community and around the state, so that we're giving presentations by speakers who are known to people who might draw those people in. And so it's been sort of like somewhere in between there, right? Like I thought we really should have something on climate change. Oh, I found some people who are interested in giving lectures on climate change. Oh, I'd really like to have something on autism because it's been in the news a lot. Well, I have some people who are willing to do that. So there are certainly topics that we haven't offered yet that I would like to. I would like to be able to offer either a single lecture or a series on like what's up with critical race theory and why are people so worried about it? Kind of what is happening in terms of trans rights and what are the concerns there, right? So there are some topics that aren't currently on our schedule that I would like to be able to add to our schedule next year. And so what I have to find is retired faculty who feel that they have the expertise to provide an event in that area. So it's been, again, sort of like somewhere in between, the various kinds of things I think it would be good for us to cover and the people who are available to offer things. And then in some cases, like with Scott Russell Sanders, I just said, will you just offer something? Because anything you offer would be great. And he said yes, and he thought long and hard about what he wanted to offer, and that's what we offered.
I was a little bit concerned about the mechanical side of this. I would assume that this is all online. Is that correct?
It's not. So currently our lectures or our events are all in person. And we'd like part of the challenge has been that some of the venues in which we hold our presentations have the capacity to offer online and some don't. And I decided for this first year we wouldn't do anything online because I didn't want certain presentations to get privileged over others in terms of whether or not there could be an online audience for it. We've also been asked about whether we'll record them and make them publicly available. And I just have to work through the intellectual property right issues related to that. So I'm hopeful. I would like to make the events more accessible, but I just need to think about these things about how to balance different venues, which I'm really committed to having these events at lots of different kinds of places, how to balance that against kind of their capacities to offer virtual events. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned it. It's something I think about a lot, and we get lots of questions about, why aren't you recording it? It's like, well, then I have to get these intellectual property agreements ready, and it's all things we can figure out how to do. But again, kitchen table, me, laptop. So we're just sort of going step by step and trying to get a little bit better every semester. Thank you. Thank you.
Jane, thank you very much for a great presentation. Who would have thought that all the things you're good at, that you're also good at guerrilla marketing? In honor of your talk, a donation, excuse me, be made this quarter at Amethyst House. I'd like to thank today's volunteers, Lynn Schwartzberg, Katie Cerniak, Sally Gaskell, Whitney Cordova, John Diltz, Kyla Cox-Deckard, Michael Shermis, Cindy Neidhart, Dave Meyer. I also like to thank our staff, Tyler and Mandy. I do want to say with my being gone next week, one of the things that I do at the end of the meeting is I check to see which members forgot to sign in. And about 10 members today forgot to sign in. So with Mandy being new, please make sure that you sign in. If you're not going to eat, either let her know or circle your number. So that way we can record everyone who's here and we can properly bill people who are here. So our next regular meeting will be next week, January 20th. We'll be upstairs in the Georgian room, and Charles Sykes will define what is Motown. So be there or be square. So Tyler, would you please share the graphic for the four-way tests? And please stand if you're able and join me. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun?